Chapter 25. The Mauler had been backed out of the shuttle prior to shipping the contents of the cargo hold down to the surface. Gao-Run and his staff had been tasked with transferring the crates to a storage area under her house, where they would be stored until her return. The former owner of the ship, Thalu, had made several trips down to the abandoned Eldaron homeworld while they were in the area. She had ignored instructions not to loot the planet, which had cost the woman her life, endangering Callie in the process. The enemy boarding pod, that had drilled through the hull, was still accessible through the storage section of the shuttle bay. Callie hadn't taken the time to look through Thalu's collection of artifacts. "I just got a message from Port Liberty," Tyrell said over the intercom. "They're almost done reloading the shuttle, but there's been an incident. They need you on the surface. I told them I'll send you down once the twins are done unloading the shuttle." "What kind of incident?" Callie asked. "Let's just say I'll be piloting the shuttle back remotely. Why can't Syntholo just fly it back? I'll take care of Gowrie once I get down there. He was arrested by the Port Authority." "You're kidding?" Callie gasped. "What happened? Was Shinji involved?" "I don't have all the details, but there was some sort of altercation with Gao-Run. Before you ask, Syntholo started it. Gowrie only got involved after the fact. Your little friend, Shinji, was the one that called security to break it up." "I've seen what Gao-Run is capable of," Callie said irritably. "They're lucky to be alive." "I take it he does more than run a local restaurant," Tyrell snickered. "He's a top-ranked assassin in Project Acorn, and was recently promoted to head one of the 3 primary divisions. If he's that important, I'm surprised he's so quick to follow your marching orders." "Who do you think promoted him?" Callie snickered. "Granted, that's not entirely true. He had technically been promoted long before that, but the former division head had refused to step down from his post. I just forced the issue." "If you can exert that much influence," Tyrell remarked, "why don't you send them after the ship that attacked the Nadrock system?" Callie frowned darkly. "There are far too many conflicting agendas involved in the alliance. If Gao-Run is right, the entire cause was compromised before its conception. He might just be a conspiracy nut, but I'm not willing to take that chance." "The shuttle will be here soon," Tyrell cautioned. "Ziku, sorry," Callie yelled, "get on the Mauler." Callie ushered the twins onto the tank and sealed the hatch. "We're ready," Callie said. They waited, somewhat impatiently, until the shuttle docking procedure had completed. The storage containers would need to be sorted based on their contents, but that could be handled while she was dealing with the situation on the surface. She just needed someone to make sure the twins spent more time working than playing. After the shuttle was on board and the bay was pressurized, Callie opened the Mauler's main hatch and motioned for the twins to follow her to the back of the shuttle where the Mauler would have been docked under normal circumstances. "Tyrell," Callie ordered, "open the door so we can start unloading." "One of the sensors is malfunctioning," Tyrell complained. "Give me a minute to bypass it. I'd like to know what those idiots did to my shuttle. It was working fine when it left." "Whose shuttle?" Callie snickered. "Who is in charge of the maintenance?" "Are you sure you didn't break the sensor yourself to force me to buy a new shuttle?" "I wouldn't do that," Tyrell scoffed. "I may have done some window shopping, but I wouldn't sabotage our only shuttle." "Should I be expecting a sales pitch later?" Callie snickered. "Count on it." A deep hissing sound came from the shuttle as the pressure between the Mauler dock and the shuttle bay began to equalize. "I found the problem," Tyrell said as the heavy door lowered, forming a ramp leading into the back of the shuttle. "Okay, kids," Callie said, "if it's labeled as perishable or food, stack it on the elevator side of the bay. All replacement parts should be stacked toward the shuttle bay door. Put everything else toward the middle, and we'll sort through them later." "Okay, Mama," Ziku said as Yari started pulling containers out of the back of the shuttle. Callie was grateful that they'd agreed to help. There were very few species that could rival the might of a Galtim. The boxes the twins were able to carry would normally have required a forklift. Lady Darkseid, a voice called from beyond the densely stacked crates. Is that you, Shinji? Callie laughed. I hope you have that translation module I requested, or I'll have to send you back down to get it. The side doors won't open, he yelled. Can you let me out? Do you want me to open the door? Tyrell asked over her personal communicator. I'm so sorry to hear that, Callie teased. You'll just have to help us unload the shuttle. Are you kidding? Shinji yelled. These boxes each weigh about 100 pounds empty. Fine, I'll let you out, Callie said with a vicious grin, but only if you agree to bring that translator up to Jake. I'll do it, just let me out, he said urgently. This shuttle is missing something really important. You should have gone before you left, Callie scoffed, then added. Tyrell, let him out. Direct him where to go once he gets to the elevator, please. The shuttle's side door opened. Shinji rushed out and looked around in confusion. Callie looked around the side, pointed to the back of the shuttle bay and said, elevator, that way. He rushed over to her, gave her a quick kiss on the cheek, then sprinted for the elevator. Callie smirked as her black tail lashed out, attempting to grab him from behind. I guess he wasn't bluffing, Tyrell snickered over her communicator. Do you mind if I just let him use the bathroom on the bridge? Tyrell asked. It is a shorter trip. Go ahead, Callie said with a sigh. Just make sure he gets that translator to Jake before you let him back down to the dock. I need to ask him what happened at the starport, but the translator comes first. Is there a reason you want to discuss it down there? The twins seem to have everything under control. He's technically still a Port Liberty security staff member. I kinda borrowed him from the Port Authority. I may need him to make sure everything goes smoothly while I'm down there. So, Tyrell teased, you're just using him? Tall, dark hair, deep brown eyes, nice tight butt, telepathic, Callie mused. Maybe I am, but I assure you it had nothing to do with his job title. I think we should have a talk, Tyrell chuckled, about your penchant for unrestrained honesty. I've missed you, Shinji thought to her. Then hurry up and deliver that translation module, Callie thought back. Mama, Yari said, this one's heavy. Can you help? Callie looked at the brothers in surprise. What is it? I don't know, Ziku said as he peered out from behind the massive box. You two can do this, Callie said. Just think it through. It's too heavy, Yari insisted. Callie sighed. Where do you plan to put it? Over there, Yari said as he pointed toward an empty section of the floor. Don't show me, Callie said sternly. Tell your brother. Ziku stepped out from behind the dark metallic box and said, why me, Mama? Because I'm going to do the most important part. Ziku tilted his head and let his left arm hang limp, swaying slightly. Show him, Callie instructed. Yari pointed again. Ziku, use your Mystrionics abilities to coat the floor with ice from the front of the box to the area your brother pointed to. Just think back to your training. You made snow earlier, this time make ice. It needs to be strong and thick. Lower the temperature, and pull the water from the air around you. Just use the floor as your focal point. You're new to this, so don't try to be fancy. Callie reached out with her will and distorted the metallic deck plate in front of her. Slender metallic strands drew upward, around one another, and bent forward until they had taken the shape of a stool. She sat down, crossed her legs, and said, just believe in yourself. Okay, Ziku said nervously, I'll try. What should I do? Yari asked. You have different abilities, Callie said with a warm smile. Kobitomj is about power, endurance, resistance, and mobility. Once he has the ice ready, I'll show you how to increase your strength with the force of your will. Don't worry, I'll walk you through it. The elevator door opened. Shinji, panting, stepped off the elevator. You actually ran, Callie thought to Shinji. You should have used telekinesis to impede. I don't want you getting worn out already. You really need to get more exercise. Are you offering to help? He thought as he began walking over to her. Callie smiled at the desire behind his thoughts. Of course, Callie said aloud as she motioned for him to join her behind the shuttle. What's that? He thought as he noticed Ziku. Who, not what, Callie scolded him. There's a gal team. I better not hear you talking about my sons like that again. You're what? Shinji thought as he drew near. My twin boys. Shinji smirked. Isn't it interesting how much a superficial lie feels like the truth? So, you adopted a pair of orphans. Isn't it really hot in here for a Jagaltim? Callie laughed. They have abilities that allow them to compensate for that. Please use telepathy sparingly while you're on board. I have enough trouble trying to get the twins to use verbal communication. Shinji was confused. They have full conversations using body language. I may not be able to answer, yet, but I can understand them. They're great kids. They're surprisingly respectful and polite. Shinji grinned. Well, that felt like a lie. Damn, Callie said with a wary smile. I thought I could sneak that one past your truth detection. It's accurate as long as you can't read their movements. They're kids, what do you expect? I'm done, Ziku said with a broad toothy grin. That was quick, Callie said. Let me take a look. She walked over to the broad strip of ice and rested her hand on his shoulder. Is it good? He asked. It's a bit rough, Callie said, but for a first try, it's really good. You just need more practice. But make sure the bay is clear of ice when the shuttle's coming in so we don't have any accidents. Let me show you what you want it to look like. She reached out with her consciousness, felt the path of the ice, reached out to the elemental forces, and bent them to her will. She liquefied the ice, waited for it to find its level, built up the surface tension to a 1-inch height, then refroze it. Mama? Ziku asked. Why can't I control that much water? Mama? Shinji thought with amusement. Callie flashed him a disapproving look before returning her attention to Ziku. A person's ability to use Kobitomge, Mystrionics, Psionics, or any other mystic talent is like a muscle, Callie explained. The harder you work those muscles, the stronger you get. I'll work hard, Ziku said, so I can be as strong as Mama. That's very sweet, Callie said as she stepped in front of him and scratched gently under his chin. Friend over there lifted weights all day, every day, how long would it take him to get as strong as you? The twins lowered their heads, opened their mouths, and let out a loud guttural sound. That was a laugh, she thought to Shinji. He's a Terran, Yari said. A Terran can't get muscles like ours. Ziku tried to lower his head, but Callie held her hand firmly under his jaw. Your special muscles will never be like mine, Callie said in a gentle tone. Just work to become as strong as you can, and learn better ways to use the abilities you do have. Yari walked out from behind the crate and down the ramp into the shuttle bay. What's going on? Shinji asked. They don't believe me, Callie said with a smirk. Shinji, come and give me a hand. Let's show these kids how it's done. Just tell me what you need me to do, he said with a shrug. Callie walked over to the shipping crate and rested her hand near the top of the box. I need you to put up a telekinetic barrier. Just a stripe about a half-foot wide running across the front of the box at this level. You're creating a pivot point. I'm going to get behind the container and push from the bottom. Once it rotates up enough, release the barrier so it lands on the ice. Are you sure you can push it on your own? The twins were standing next to each other watching them. Callie studied their movements with a steely glare. They were waiting for her to fail. "Don't worry, I'll be fine," Callie scoffed as she headed behind the crate. "Get ready." "All set here," Shinji said a moment later. 3 years of training as a battle mage, under the guidance of Sadakar, Callie grumbled, "and I'm reduced to teaching belligerent children." Callie rested her hands near the bottom of the box and braced it on either side with one of her brown tails. "Yari, pay attention," Callie snapped. "I'm not doing this for my benefit. I'm only going to use Kobitomj. You have almost twice my physical strength, but if I focus my strength and force of will, I can." Yari laughed. Callie reached deep within herself, drew all of her strength and will into her core, and directed all of her power into her forearms. She shifted her focus forward into the crate. The box scraped against the floor of the shuttle as it shifted forward and upward against Shinji's telekinetic barrier. His barrier collapsed, and the box landed firmly on the sheet of ice. "Now that it's on the ice, the two of you should be able to carefully shift it forward and guide it down the ramp." Callie walked back to the front of the crate and studied the twins' movements. Moving an object on ice creates less friction and makes it a lot easier to push. "You're getting angry," Shinji thought. "Try to calm down. Show them kindness, not wrath." "That's it," Callie snapped. "Everyone get out of the way. Go stay near the mauler." Shinji followed her instructions, but the twins were still standing too close to the back of the shuttle. "You two should probably do what she says," he cautioned. "Physical work helps build mental discipline," Callie said firmly. "This is all part of your training. I can push every last bit of knowledge about how your abilities work directly into your heads, but if you don't develop the mental discipline to apply that knowledge, it's worthless." Callie waved her hand in a sweep motion, turning the ice into vapor as she did so. "You need discipline for strength, precision for control, and an understanding of how the fundamental forces of the universe interact. Ziku, if you can't master the basics, like converting gas to liquid and solids, you'll never be able to move on to more complicated tasks like adjusting gravitational interactions or magnetic forces." Callie focused on the box, reduced its weight and passed a charge through the floor and the container. It hovered a few inches above the floor on a dense electromagnetic field. She called a light breeze to move it out of the shuttle. The crate came to rest on the floor. "You can do this too, but it takes practice and effort. Yari, your abilities are different. You need to understand how friction and leverage work. You need to be able to focus and control your strength. Once you master this." Callie walked over to the box, focused her strength and will, and struck the side of the box, sending it sliding across the floor. That was the ability we call Power Strike. If you pull back your strength just before impact, you'll push the box instead of damaging it. You can't do this without a lot of practice. It's not about just being strong, but knowing when to withhold your strength. The twins hunched forward until their knuckles were resting on the floor in front of them and bowed their massive heads. "Apology accepted," Callie said with a warm smile. "I understood that one," Shinji thought. "That was as clear a display of supplication as I've ever seen. Is their society based on social dominance?" "The records about their culture are limited," Kayla thought in response, "but there are research reports indicating they tend to live in tribal groups with a focus on athletic prowess. Most of their rituals involve a highly kinetic form of dance." Callie finished positioning the large crate as the twins resumed their work unloading the back of the shuttle. Even with the full use of her abilities, it was grueling work. She'd made a big display for the benefit of the twins but was careful not to let them see how much it had taken out of her. "Tyrell," Callie said, "it looks like this shipping crate is made from cordonite tritinium. That's one expensive box. How about you tell me what you're wasting my money on?" "It's a new, experimental, medium-range, automated defense system," Tyrell answered. "Don't they use these containers to ship radioactive materials?" It's a plasma-based system with a really high ion density. The power module is highly radioactive. It won't work while we're cloaked, but could save our asses if we end up in a firefight. How much did this set me back? Do you care? Tyrell laughed. If you want me to buy you a ship once this is all over, Callie growled, you should care, too. When they gave me the title of Lady Darkseid, they only gave me an account with 5,000 gal creds, and I've already gone through about a quarter of that. That reminds me, we should consider returning those rental satellites so I can get my deposit back. You really need to check your accounts more often, Tyrell snickered over her earpiece. What's that supposed to mean? Callie asked as she walked over to Shinji. Every command ship in the Alliance is required to be equipped with the same universal cipher. It's only available through one distributor, which is owned and operated by Project Acorn. From the moment that account was opened, you've been receiving commissions on every unit sold. After you gave me account access, I got curious and looked into where all that money was coming from. I hope you don't mind. The equipment can't possibly be worth 10% of what they're charging. I'd love to know how they suckered the Alliance members into this contract. It's a negotiation worthy of Taz Core. I guess people tend to associate cost with quality, Callie said with a shrug. True enough, Tyrell responded. Is that sensor on the back door going to be a problem? Callie asked. Her black tail wrapped around Shinji's arm as she passed by him. He followed her without any further encouragement. I bypassed the sensor, Tyrell said dismissively. You should be fine. Double-check the shuttle systems while I make a spot inspection of the crew quarters. And check my balance. I'll send my replacement shuttle recommendations to the cockpit computer for your review, Tyrell said. I'm not reading it now, Callie scoffed as she led Shinji onto the shuttle. I just want to focus on inspecting this inventory. Callie closed the side shuttle door. Would you two at least have the decency to tell me when to deactivate the shuttle's interior monitoring equipment? Tyrell grumbled. Sorry, Callie said with a grin as Shinji blushed brightly. Tyrell's voice sounded over the intercom. The twins have finished unloading and are currently on their way to the break room. I'm prepping the shuttle for launch. I'll take care of navigation from my end, so you won't have to worry about further interruptions. Callie pushed the transmit button on the cockpit's primary control console. I'm here. Go ahead and take the helm, while I look over these shuttle specifications. Oh, you're finished. Tyrell began. Someone is, Callie grumbled. I'm sorry to hear that, he said sympathetically. He'll just have to make it up to me later, she said irritably. Did he fall asleep or something? Callie's tail thumped solidly against the floor. You're a cyberpath, you wouldn't understand, Callie sighed deeply. Try me. It's different with telepaths, Callie. We have to balance our mental defenses against our desire so our minds don't touch too deeply. His defenses didn't hold, and he went somewhere he didn't belong. His consciousness is stuck, experiencing one of my memories. Either he couldn't pull himself away from it or didn't want to. Eventually, it will run its course, and he'll regain consciousness. I'm guessing you don't have this problem with Pinky? Of course not, Callie scoffed. She's a lunatic. She's better trained, less emotional, has a wider pool of abilities to draw from, and is a hell of a lot stronger. That's a bit cold, Tyrell said. It almost makes me feel bad for the kid. It's true. Can you tell what he's experiencing? The subtle vibration of the engines flowed through the shuttle. His defenses are completely down. So, yeah. From the tone of your voice, Tyrell said, I'm guessing it's not a happy memory. I don't have many that are, Callie admitted, but that one's pretty bad. Mind if I ask? Or is this another one of those answers that just leads to a never-ending barrage of questions? Not if you're willing to accept the reply as it is. I'll try, Tyrell said. Just give me a second to finish entering your course into the flight computer. Aren't you going to guide us out of the bay first? You're already out, he scoffed. That was smooth, Callie said appreciatively. So, tell me about those shuttles you were looking at. What about that memory? You're not going to let me change the subject, are you? Not this time. Have you heard of Princess Paradox? Callie asked. She was a singer that had a promising career but died in her prime. Her concerts were particularly popular due to the use of telepathy to allow the audience to hear different lyrics than she was actively singing. She had been killed just over 6 years ago during a race riot on Hyrule. 1,247 dead, 328 injured, and 120 unaccounted for. You looked that up, Callie snickered. Guilty as charged, Tyrell laughed. I was there, Callie shuddered. That was the day my telepathic abilities awakened. Seriously bad timing, Tyrell said sadly. Callie looked over at Shinji, who was twitching quietly as he experienced her memory. I'm responsible for what happened. I felt all of their thoughts all at once. I didn't know how to block them out. At first, I just sat there screaming in my mind, pleading with them to leave me alone. That sounds pretty rough, Tyrell asked, but why do you blame yourself? When the voices in my head didn't stop, I just started chanting the word die, over and over in my head. That's when the riot started. They started tearing each other apart because I told them to. The survivors were mostly from races that aren't susceptible to telepathic influence, which is why they wrote it off as a race riot. That's the memory your friend is experiencing? Tyrell asked in dismay. I sure don't envy him now. Thanks for sharing that with me. Wait a minute, Callie said with a start. You don't envy him now. What's that supposed to mean? Did you envy him before? Would you care to explain that? No, he chuckled. I'd rather not. Tyrell. What? He snickered. I may be old, but my eyes still work just fine. Do I have to start covering up all the shipboard cameras? Callie snickered. Put away that paintbrush, he said with a snort. Brush? Callie asked. What brush? The one you're trying to paint me with, he chuckled softly. That's really not my style, and I have a daughter around your age. Really? Callie teased, I didn't think you were that old. I meant your biological age, Tyrell snapped. You never mentioned you have a daughter, Callie noted. After my reputation got ruined, her mother took off with her. I haven't seen either of them in about 15 years. I don't know what she's been told about me, but she won't accept my messages. I'm sorry to hear that, Callie said, if there's anything I can do. Not unless you know where I can find a time machine, he snickered. Callie frowned darkly. Would it really matter if I did? Tyrell fell silent. Callie glanced through the shuttle schematics Tyrell had sent. Probably not, Tyrell admitted. I spent years wishing I could go back and make things right. I never stopped to think about what that even meant. I don't know if it was always about the creds, but once Adelia was born, her mother became obsessed with money. She pushed me, harder and harder, but it was never enough. When you do the sort of work I used to, you'll never get rich unless you take risks. The bigger the risk, the bigger the reward. It was only a matter of time until something went wrong. I had dirt on some pretty powerful people. I thought that would keep me safe, and maybe it did for a while. Somewhere down the line, I crossed the wrong people. It could have just been one person for all I know. Sometimes, that's all it takes. My reputation was ruined, the cash flow stopped, then I wake up one morning to a note from my wife. She'd taken our daughter and left. She'd emptied our accounts to pay for passage on some freighter. I haven't seen them since. So that's why you were so focused on rebuilding your reputation, Callie said. You seemed to be doing all right for yourself when I found you. You found me, he snickered. That's not how I remember it. Fair enough, Callie laughed. You weren't exactly the contact I was supposed to be meeting. Oh, Tyrell chuckled, do you mean the contact with 3 of my slugs in his brain? That one? I bet that fake cyberpath would have been loads of help. That was a weird situation. You're telling me? I'd been hired by some rich bitch to find proof her husband was cheating. She was suspicious because she found out he was getting messages from a lot of women. The guy was innocent. The women were his coworkers. He was just willing to take extra shifts so he could make some extra coin. He wasn't bringing home the extra creds, so she was convinced he had a lady on the side. I looked into it. He was saving up for a major purchase, but I didn't know what. Next thing I know, she tells me my services are no longer required, and that she's going to handle things on her own. This set off a warning siren in my head, so I dusted off my old skill set and did some digging. It didn't take much effort. I don't know all the details, but she hired someone to lure in and kill the person she thought her hubby was cheating with. There I am thinking some innocent woman is going to end up dead, so I decided to do something about it. Then I see you, and I thought I might have been wrong. Maybe he was cheating. It didn't take long to put it all together. You were just trying to hire a cyberpath. That crazy, obsessed, bitch must have seen some message, and assumed you two were trying to hire someone to help hide your tracks. Callie laughed. Well, that explains a few things. I suppose it does, Tyrell said. I went to that bar to save a young woman's life, and she ended up saving mine. That's not how I remember it, Callie teased. Come on, he grumbled. I'm trying to be serious, for a change. Every day was the same as the last. I was alive, but I wasn't really living. You gave me purpose, for the first time in about 15 years. You said your daughter hasn't responded to any of your messages, Callie said softly. I take that to mean you've been keeping track of her. Yeah, Tyrell said sadly. Sometimes I feel like I'm stalking her. Always watching her from the shadows as she grew up, knowing I couldn't pick her up when she fell, or be there to celebrate her victories. What does she do for a living? Callie asked. Did she inherit your abilities? Nah, she's part of the 94%, the what? The people without any special talents. Is it really that high? Callie mused. Sometimes it seems like everyone I know has a knack for one of the mystic arts. I suppose it's all a matter of how you make your friends. Those blue-skinned Darians are all telepathic to some degree, and the same is true of those squid-headed Daenerics. That's not actually true, Callie said. All Darians can communicate with telepathy, but only 1 in 5 have what it takes to be classified as an actual telepath, and even less than that have the potential to become a full-fledged psionicist. There's a small percentage of Daenerics that suffer from a condition that roughly translates to genetic flip, which replaces their natural psionics ability with a talent for mystrionics. You know this how? Tyrell scoffed. The former owner of this ship was Darian. She told me, and I know a Daeneric mystrionicist. I don't suppose that's the guy listed as Squiddy on your contact list. It is, Cal grinned. You know that's a racial slur, right? It's his call sign, Callie said with a shrug. We're coming in for our final approach now, Tyrell said. How's your friend? Still out, Callie grumbled. I suppose I should pull up his pants before we land. Tyrell chuckled softly.